ahead while we allow everyone to jump on and start this webinar. Hello, everyone. I'm Tiffany Feingold. I am the co-founder and CEO of Guiding Bright Minds. I am so excited. I recognize so many people's names. When I launched Guiding Bright Minds over 3.5 years ago, I was doing 2 free webinars a month. And then I launched my neurodiversity resource fair and realized how much work that was. And I'm so excited to bring this back because having webinars and the volume of registrations we get and hearing back from you and the needs to have this dialogue and education was so profound. So thank you all, because I know time is precious and how you took the time out of your day to join us. I just want to talk a little bit about Guiding Bright Minds and who we are and what we do. I'm a parent of a neurodivergent child, married to a spouse who's neurodivergent, and recently uncovered mine, which I shouldn't say I uncovered it because I think I've always known, but I'm now, official in embracing and recognizing and understanding. And it's been such a beautiful journey. But also, as we all know, the journeys can be tough. And that's where I created Guided Bright Minds, is how to support each other, how to build a community that embraces, that understands, and that works together to overcome some of those damaging stereotypes and stigmas. And so through Guiding Bright Minds, I'm also excited to announce that I am getting ready to launch an empowering parent program. One of the biggest reasons why I launched Guiding Bright Minds was to connect parents with other parents of neurodivergent children. Those friendships have been life-changing for me, and I want to help other parents on that journey and making those connections, building those relationships, also impacting, how the world embraces us and how we embrace them back in helping that understanding and that growth. And I am so excited to really kick off my webinar series with Dr. Sam. This is one thing that I love about this community is the opportunity to meet professionals like him and others who have such a impact because of their experience, because of their work and the choices that they've made through that process, but also the willingness to share their story and to be able to share and help guide parents and knowing how difficult this journey is for us. So this today is really special for me, neurodistinct resilience. And how we build that amongst us and how we support each other. And Dr. Sam's going to share his experiences, his talents as a comedian, which if you haven't seen, I've posted some of those and we're going to definitely share more. Great, because one thing that we also know as being a parent, we do need to laugh. Oh my gosh, we need to give ourselves grace. We need to laugh. We need to embrace each other. But I love his skits, and you will too once you see them, I know. And then his practice of what he's done from a professional lens. So, Dr. Sam, thank you so much for joining us. I am going to turn it over to you to go ahead and further introduce yourself to this amazing group of parents and professionals.
Thank you, Tiffany. I really appreciate everything you've done. I've been to your resource fair, and I didn't even know that there was this entire community and ecosystem and support. And this is the thing that I lacked growing up. And I didn't know that I was on the spectrum, specifically Asperger's, until only about 5 years ago in my late 30s. And it was, growing up in the 80s and 90s, and there was just, I didn't even know that this was a thing. My parents didn't know there was a thing, despite both of them being psychiatrists. There was just no resource and no support. So although I grieve the lack of support I had growing up, I am so grateful to be able to help contribute in my own way locally to the people here in support of raising neurodistinct children, but also globally educating through comedy on what it's like to be on the spectrum, specifically Asperger's. And the comedy, the comedy show itself was written in a way that is brings people together, and we can all laugh together, and everyone's feeling supported. I do have meaningful criticisms of other neurodivergent comics, that they either, my opinion, spend too much time dunking on the audience, the normies, or dunking on themselves and kind of creating kind of a zoo animal-y, leering experience. And what I want to do is help normalize, yet also acknowledge the hilarious different worldviews that we're in, because we have different brains. And the show itself is there's no politics, there's no cursing, there's nothing gratuitous in it, and it's also really funny, and there's a meaningful message, and normies and spectrum folk can watch it together and not feel like everyone's alienating each other or dunking on each other. And my intention is that the comedy will help bridge the gap of understanding. And that's been said, that laughter is the sound of comprehension. And today, specifically, what I want to do is to talk about what can be done to help parents of neurodistinct children. And when Tiffany and I first chatted, she requested that I focus on how to help the parents with their resilience. And because the parents are the ones who, and I'll speak to about what happened with my parents shortly, that, that the child definitely struggles with trying to make sense of their sensory overwhelmed world, and these rules and norms that are seemingly illogical and don't understand why people are saying one thing and acting another. And I'm definitely speaking from my personal experience here growing up. But then the wear on the parents of trying to navigate, trying to help their child navigate. And then what frequently happens is a self-sacrifice of the parent, which then has a knock-on effect of affecting the whole family. So today I want to cover how to better thrive and increase resilience in the parents, especially. And while what I want to know is, in the chat, and people can just put it in the chat, what are you most excited about learning today? And just of the people that are here, I would love to know, is there a burning question you have? What are you most excited to learn about? Because I do want to make sure that people that the people want to, the people get what they came for. Also, my colleague Theo is also going to be in the chat in order to help, because I'm busy presenting. He's also going to be navigating the chat with questions with Tiffany as well. So if you just put in the chat, what are you excited about? I believe chat's enabled. Questions are enabled. What are you most excited about learning? Thank you, Theo. All right. So we've got here are the key insights I want to share with you today. One is how to prioritize your health without guilt, and that to uncouple this idea that self-care is selfish. That's not true. That self-care is necessary, and actually in support, not selfish. Number two is simple and effective lifestyle changes. I'll cover like the three biggest buckets of what the big categories that you can, as a parent, focus on to get the most out of your busy life. Then there's nutrition tips for busy parents. In fact, if people stay towards the end, I have a freebie of a 3-day nutrition guide to help jumpstart better nutrition and better support. Because when people are dysglycemic or hangry, it affects the whole family. It affects all the resilience. And the next is the connection between mental and physical health, and how stress, anxiety, and et cetera impacts your physical health, and then how to build long-term wellness habits. So this is me as a, I think this was taken in 4th grade, something like that. And I didn't discover I had Asperger's until my late 30s, and I found out that I had Asperger's when I figured out that my father had severe Asperger's. Like he's like I'm on this, as I say in the comedy show, I'm on the spectrum, but he's the bookend. And um so there was, and my parents had a nuclear divorce when I was 6 years old, and me and my siblings were caught in the blast radius. And it was a very ugly, ugly, ugly divorce. And my parents did not handle it well, and were weaponizing children against the other parent, and it was really not handled well at all. And what happened was that um the the struggles that I was exhibiting in school were I was being blamed that I was quote just like my father. Well, I wasn't him. I mean, I'm much further I'm not as extreme as he is in terms of being on the spectrum. But what happened in terms, this is the first kind of point around resiliency I want to share with, is that, and again, this is a different time. This was back in the 80s. We're now 35 years past where this was starting. But one of the ways that a family lowers its resilience is the circular firing squad of blame. And now granted, some people are more skillful at acknowledging people's contributions and their own contributions to a situation, and some people are less skillful. But if you find yourself that the family unit is in this circling fire, I'm losing the phrase here, circular firing squad of blame, then everyone's resilience of the family goes down. And this is where it might be really valuable to get kind of an outside advocate that does that can help uncouple and detangle this family bird's nest of stress. Because my family certainly didn't do that, and it just really harmed everybody. I mean, spoiler alert, like my mom, by the one reason why I'm here is because uh and I want to help parents, why I so deeply want to help parents, and particularly focusing on moms with kids on the spectrum, or kids who are neurodistinct, is because my mom was not doing well, and by her own admission, she did not make good decisions on my behalf because she wasn't doing well. Now, spoiler alert is that my mom and I have a great relationship now. We really do. In fact, she's coming to visit at the end of October for the second time. She's going to spend another week out here with me, and I very much look forward to it. And it's also been an extremely long, long road of multiple decades to try to repair the relationship of all the problems that were created when she was raising me. So she was dealing with chronic physical pain. She was dealing with chronic sleep deprivation, and she was dealing with, uh, uh, she was dealing with massive dysglycemia because she was just pounding candy bars instead of lunch. And so we're talking about three ways that mom's resilience was going down. Oh, and on top of that, it was also just the stress of it all. But physiologically, the pain, the sleep deprivation, and the dysglycemia were absolutely affecting her, and then by extension affecting me. So uh, I'm kind of here wanting to not raise my fist at the sky in resentment of what happened, but instead, for lack of a better word, end the karma by helping moms now, so that it helps the version of me back then, if that makes sense. So here are the stats of caring for a neurodistinct child. And for Asperger's, it's about 1 in 200 people, or 0.5%. For ADHD, it's 1 in 10. For OCD, it's 1 in 100, and 1 in 4 of those 1 in 100 also have ADHD. And then sensory processing disorder is 1 in 6. And This is from Physiopedia, the source, the neurodivergentsites.com, and then MSD manuals, and then there's the ADAA.org. Those are the citations there. So one of the things that was different from back then versus now is that there was not there was not even the acknowledgement, much less the stats readily available, or the communities that people like Tiffany have put together. So you're definitely not alone. And that if you're a parent, part of the anxiety and the decrease in resilience has to do with the feeling of being isolated. And that feeling's way less now than it was back then, but it still can feel very isolating. And also within a family, you got one child. I know someone mentioned in the chat that they got one sibling that's, struggling with all the extra, I believe it's uh, one sibling is being very frustrated with all the extra exceptions that are being made for his other sibling. And that can also create this kind of boilerplate of resentment inside and lowering the resilience of the family. So the primary, one of the primary ways to increase resilience for yourself and the family is to prioritize your personal resilience. That make it a priority, not as an act of selfishness, but of support for the whole family. And that the that and also the struggles you're dealing with are very real, like little time and energy for your own health. I think it's baked into the software as a parent of feeling overwhelmed and guilty for not finding balancing your responsibilities for as being as a parent, as a partner, and as an individual. And then there's also there's the cultural supermom state, or the boss babe archetype, that has kind of emerged out of the current culture, where you should be able to manage it all without feeling worn down, ragged, or somehow dropping the balls here. And the the thing that comes at your own cost is one's own personal health and well-being. So there are long-term risks and things that I've seen in my practice working with, I don't know how many moms at this point, and also watching what happened to my own mom, that it can lead to fatigue, burnout, physical health issues, weight gain, hormone imbalance, menopause. Um, menopause was mentioned in the chat as well. And then there's the emotional toll, and then the strain on relationships, whether it's children, family, colleagues, or friends. I know that um, when my mom was kind of in the throes of the consequence of her ignoring her own health, that she was two people. There was who she was in public. Uh, there, there's who she was in public. When we had weekly dinners, when we had members of the community, we go out and see members of the community. And then there's who she was in private to me. And she was very different, and short, and just radiating with like all of her shields went down and the facades went down. And it definitely put a strain, because as someone who was neurodivergent, and I was like trying to reconcile, why is this person two separate people, and not understanding what's going on, and me coming to the conclusion that, well, if the kids at school are making fun of me and attacking me physically, and my father's absentee, and de facto absentee, I should say, and just like distant, and then my mom is really basically subclinically hostile towards me whenever I'm around, whether it's like resentment, or it's snappy, or curt, or whatever. And I have, an angry sibling at home that seems to always be yelling at me, and two other siblings that are just kind of hiding in the upstairs portion of the house. The only conclusion I have is it's all my fault. Something must be terribly wrong with me, because literally everyone's either angry at me or ignoring me. And uh, and what I didn't understand, what people didn't tell me, is that everyone else in my orbit is on their own journey. And um, then it, it just was very, very confusing. And what I would wish is that if my parents had more prioritized their health more, then if they had prioritized it, not only would they feel better, would they act better, but it would have just absolutely have been a benefit to me as the child, whether or not I was, even if I was neurodivergent, everything would have been much better. So if there's a prioritization, then there'll be way more energy for you. There'll be much less stress, enhanced relationships, and you can be a better parent. And I'm going to share 3 specific ways right now that can help increase resilience. Now, some of you may have already heard some of this, and part of the we're going to cover just kind of big picture concepts because there's clearly tons of material of how to increase resilience. So number 1 is how you prioritize it. That would be the most important. Number 2 is to have a real solid higher protein breakfast, not just for you, but also for the whole family. And the reason why, now there's a lot of people, a lot of people, if we're in Colorado, particularly around Boulder, people can be into all sorts of interesting fasting regimes and all the rest of it. And and here's the thing, I do not recommend people skip breakfast, especially females, because it's a different hormone physiology, and that the term break fast means break the fast. And what happens is at night, we're not eating at night because we're sleeping. And the stress hormone cortisol goes up at night in order to break down stored fuel in the body, in order to keep a constant source of fuel going in the bloodstream to keep the brain and body alive. So your cortisol goes up at night, keeps going up, keeps going up. And then what happens is that if you wake up and you don't have breakfast, you still need that fuel to keep your brain and body alive. So cortisol, the stress hormone, keeps going up until you eat something. Then it breaks the fast or break fast. And then what happens is that your cortisol levels can calm down. Now, it calms down with protein, not sugar. Now, this was the first ebook I ever wrote, which was on breakfast, the four bad breakfasts. The 4 bad breakfasts were skipping, sugar only, coffee only, or glorified sugar, which was processed grains. And processed grains are just glorified sugar. So if you do any of those, you're actually causing more cortisol, more stress hormone to be released, and therefore lowering your resilience and kind of setting you up for what I would call metabolic failure for the rest of the day. So if you wake up and within the first 30 minutes, ideally, you have like 30 grams of protein. Now, whether that's, a couple hard-boiled eggs, or you mix like a collagen smoothie together, or it's like you soak chia seeds in, I don't know, coconut milk the night before in the fridge. I've done that before. You just having something that's high in protein. Ideally, you'd wake up and drink like a lot of water to help rehydrate, and then you'd wait 30 minutes and then have something quick. Usually it's a quick, whatever, collagen smoothie or something. It's to help break the fast. Then your personal resilience, your adrenals can calm down, can recalibrate, and you're not in this kind of underlying stress response right from the beginning of the day. And that would also help if your family can do that as well. That would be even better for everybody. The third main way to increase resilience, and by the way, I do see the questions in the chat. These are excellent questions. We'll get to these at the end. Yeah, these are great questions. Okay. Yeah. The third main thing to focus on, oh, and by the way, let me just kind of clear up something on the fasting on breakfast. So there's a lot of talk around intermittent fasting, like, oh, wow, intermittent fasting, it's so great. We should all do it. We should all skip breakfast and feel amazing. Okay. I want to point out who is promoting intermittent fasting. Okay. The The stereotypical person who is promoting intermittent fasting is a 20s to 40s tech entrepreneur, financially solvent male. That's who's promoting it. And skipping breakfast is not a good idea for female physiologies. It's just not a good idea. And so they feel great because they have lots of stress hormones and they kind of conflate stress with energy and they get a lot of stuff done. So the third thing to increase resilience is to focus on, have a sleep-focused family. Now, I'm going to say that phrase again, sleep-focused family, where as a family, everyone agrees that we prioritize sleep, because if everyone sleeps, everyone's going to do better and the closest thing to a panacea is better sleep across the board. And whether it's mood, whether it's health, whether it's hormones, whether it's, finding your optimal weight, brain, brain activity, attention, concentration, joy, whatever it is, it's sleep. So there's lots of stuff on improving sleep hygiene. I have an entire masterclass on like 12 reasons why people wake up in the middle of the night. My next ebook is going to be on sleep. I overcame severe insomnia growing up as a child. I was crippled insomnia from 6 to 18, actually stunted my growth. My insomnia was so bad. And one thing I can say is if you look up sleep hygiene, one of the best ways to support improved sleep, aside from prioritizing sleep as a family, is to think of junk light like junk food. So having bright lights, screens, the white light bulbs and so on, the brightness, all of that is like junk calories for your circadian rhythm. And uh, there should be a real emphasis on reducing screen time and reducing the volume or brightness of lights and the brightness of screens, especially after sunset. And I mean, there's certain metrics like 2 hours before you go to bed, 1 hour at the absolute latest, like all screens are off and you start dimming the lights. But the frame people should understand is that junk light is like junk food. And there's what things that people can do, like get these, $6 safety glasses that are like orange or slightly red off of Amazon or whatever, and that can help filter out the blue light that your body thinks it's daylight. So those are 3 ways to really increase resilience. One is to prioritize it, 2 is to have breakfast that's protein based, and 3 is to be a sleep focused family. Then if you want more specific ways that are tailored to your specific situation, the ways that we can help you personally is that you can schedule a free health consult with me. And then I'll guide you through a comprehensive health and lifestyle assessment. Now, we covered sleep and breakfast. And we covered a little bit of those, but those are 2 of 10 pillars of health to look at. There's other pillars to look at, like digestive function, exercise, toxic exposure, routines, hidden infections, physical posture, any old injuries to be dealt with. And so there's other pillars to be looked at. And you then receive a customized health plan with simple steps tailored to your life as a busy mom. I work predominantly with busy moms. And then there's ongoing support. And then we have long-term maintenance in order to support your progress through the whole thing. Now, this is a success story from Eileen. Working with Dr. Shay has been as close to a one-stop shop as I could find in this confusing journey of discovering total health. But what I didn't expect to happen was that one simple process that Sam gave me back the love for my mother, my daughter, and I fell in love with my husband for the first time in 16 years of being with him. The process he turned me onto has begun to heal the underlying resentments that caused all the other systems in my body to go askew. Sam puts it all together like I've never experienced, worth every penny. And she was a frontline service professional, so she had seen a lot of intense stuff in her career. So I want to, I just want to reemphasize that, that guilt is actually the enemy here, that there's a fear that if you take your focus on yourself and away from your child, it's a bad thing. It's not selfish. It's actually supportive and helpful for everyone. I mean, if my mom had prioritized her health and she wasn't so sleep deprived, in pain, stressed out, and dysglycemic, everyone's life, especially hers, would have been better. So we have a path forward, and you don't have to sacrifice yourself for the health and well-being of your kids. And as a recap, we can prioritize how to prioritize your health without guilt. Simple, effective lifestyle changes. We talked about resilience. We talked about breakfast. We talked about sleep. We're going to have the nutrition guide. We're going to show you how to get that in just a second. And then the connection between mental and physical health. So, as you all know, that if there is negativity in oneself, then the reason why that happens is that your body uses, from an evolutionary psychology and evolutionary biology perspective, stress is the signal that you are in danger, and you will sacrifice long-term health for short-term survival. Now, if you want an organ system to land on, the adrenal glands, the ones that secrete cortisol, the ones that, maintain you being alive while at night, the stress hormones, that is the short-term survival gland. Whereas the thyroid, in contrast, the thyroid is about long-term health, healing, growth, and repair. So if you are under stress, the adrenal glands, through two separate mechanisms, one is at the pituitary level, the other is at the conversion of T4 to T3 level, will actually shut down the function of the thyroid, because the body is now wanting to prioritize short-term survival over long-term healing, health, growth, repair. So when you are stressed, it will literally shut down all your repair mechanisms and your growth mechanisms. So by focusing on resilience, and all the things I mentioned, prioritizing breakfast and sleep, all of those things are focused on adrenal support and making sure that your stress responses are much calmer and more measured. Then, in terms of how to build long-term wellness habits, the number one long-term wellness habit to incorporate is prioritization. Is to not to want to do a thing, but to decide. The different part of the brain kicks in when we decide to do something. Like, I'm deciding to prioritize. I'm deciding that I'm going to do breakfast. I'm deciding we're going to be a sleep-centered, sleep-focused family. So in the chat, I would love to see what's one thing that people are taking away from today that we've discussed, something that really stood out, like a nugget, whether it was a phrase or a key point or a thought that occurred or something. I would love to know what landed. And then while you're putting that in the chat, what Theo's going to do is he'll put, okay, and I see some more questions coming with the 10 pillars of health. Okay, protein at breakfast, prioritize sleep. And Theo, if you can put the link for the free 15-minute call to chat with me to see how I can support everyone. Sleep focused family. Okay. So step one would be to schedule the free 15-minute call. Theo just put the link in there. Then step two would be a personalized plan, and then be ongoing support. And then this is the link to the freebie, is drsamshay.com/freebie. And it's going to be a really simple PDF with a lot of supporting material to help you. And while we're on this, and Tiffany just mentioned that the recording, presentation, additional resources will be available. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to answering some of the prior questions, and then please feel free to add in some more questions in. All right. So while I'm looking at the questions, Tiffany, I just want to ask you, did you have any questions that popped up on your end or things you wanted me to clarify from the presentation?
I have not seen any additional questions out than what's up there, but I think, in breaking this down to do this, because I agree, as you're talking, I can feel myself, even today, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so tired. I can just feel myself being physically tired. And I think as a mom and working mom and parenting, it's so hard. So as far as just to start off with one basic nugget, what's one thing that a parent can do right now to help them with the process? Let's start with breakfast, because I was just thinking about that. Like my son who won't eat eggs, and I try to eat eggs, so then it's cereal. We even tried the overnight oats. It's like, how do you find the time? But yeah, I'll stop there 'cause there's so much going through my brain.
So if I understand you correctly, the question's on, if we're going to pick one thing like breakfast, how do you make breakfast without sacrificing the very precious minutes of the morning? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So now there's navigating the texture, flavor peculiarities of a neurodistinct child. That's one thing. And then there's the what counts as a breakfast from which hopefully the taste sensitivities will align and everything will be great. So there's a couple different options. So everything from like something out of a jar, like collagen powder, that is pretty bland and then can be flavored with something else. I don't particularly recommend like pea protein or soy protein or whey protein because those can be allergenic, like the lectins in the peas and the dairy things in the whey, and the soy protein has its own raft of problems. And I'm a fan of collagen as one way. That's one possibility. Eggs, of course, are usually very quick, particularly if they're hard boiled the night before. There's I'm also wanting to I'm also a fan, like I love my Instant Pot. I think that was the best addition to my kitchen in the past 20 years by far. And the ability to create a ton of really healthy food at once and have it available for a couple of days even. Sometimes if there's a bit, and so combining that concept of having an Instant Pot available and food that's you can make a lot of at once in one go, I do not subscribe to there is such a thing as breakfast food. I think that is pure marketing garbage to sell boxed cereals of glorified sugar. When you actually look at these boxed cereals and you look at this is a challenge I've done in the past for parents to do, and it's kind of horrifying when you actually do it. Go into a supermarket, look at the ingredients of the box cereals. Ignore the colorful characters on the front. Just look at the ingredients on the back of the box cereal. Then what I want you to do is to go to the boxed cake mix section of the supermarket. And I want you to look at the ingredients of that. And there's like an 80 to 90% overlap of boxed cake, boxed desserts, and breakfast cereals. And I encourage you to do this experiment and weep, and that's what I grew up on. So um the idea of there's something as breakfast food is I think just complete marketing garbage. And what I have for dinner, like meat and vegetables, I have that for breakfast, and if there is a way to expand the idea of what is quote breakfast food, then the options become much larger. So like let's pick an example. Like you make a roast chicken, whatever, for dinner, and then there's leftovers. I have nothing against giving leftover chicken meat from dinner as breakfast. So that alone, I would hope would expand uh 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 that alone, I think, would it be expand a whole bunch of options. Oh, by the way, uh sorry, this slide here, I just remembered this is actually a 3-day nutrition lifestyle guide. I think I have to refresh that. 1 second. Yeah, 3-day lifestyle guide. There we go. Uh, Thanks, Theo, for pointing that out to me. All right. So did that answer your question, Tiffany?
Yes, definitely. And I appreciate that because you know what? I think we are the only country in the world that does this breakfast thing, that doesn't separate where you just can have it. So I think that's a great reminder.
Mhm.
And especially like you said, our neurodistinct children, it needs to be thought of differently than those sugars and what that impact does to them. So thank you.
Totally. So there was one question on the 10 pillars, and I'll just uh I will just show briefly what the 10 pillars are. So when I analyze someone, I do it through when I work with moms and or anyone, I this is a framework of my own creation. And what I saw that there were 10 pillars of health. And I learned that because when I was working in my first clinic, I saw that people who were chronically unwell for years, they had a minimum 7 out of 10 of these pillars crumbling. Didn't matter which seven, but it was a minimum of seven. And that explained why they weren't getting better when they're going from one practitioner, product, or protocol to the next, because most practitioners, if they're honest, are really good at three pillars, okay at another three, and pretty ignorant on another four. So it's the equivalent if if you're sitting on seven or more tacks and you remove three, technically you're healthier. Technically you are, but you don't feel better and you're not all the way there. So I had all 10 of these pillars crumbling growing up, which was why I was so unwell. So in brief, and I've got YouTube channels and on tons of material to know um, to learn more about this in more detail, but this is a method of prioritizing. So everyone has the same 10 pillars, but they're not in the same order of priority for each individual. So for teaching purposes, I'm just going to go through 1 through 10, but everyone's priorities is different, that which pillar they should work on first, next, and last. So pillar 1 is brain and hormones. So this is looking at adrenals, thyroid, sex hormones, melatonin, and it is and kind of the neurodistinctness of someone's brain makeup and how they perceive the world. That's in the center. That's brain and hormones. Pillar 2 is bowel and digestion. So bowel and digestion, what that has to do is how well you chew, how well you absorb, and how well you poo. And if you can take all the expensive farmers market organic veggies you want and all the expensive supplements that you want, but if you're not absorbing them, you're wasting money. And for me, growing up with all of the stress and the incongruent diet that I was fed, I had severe constipation, and so I couldn't go except every once every 3 to 5 days. And both my medical doctor parents and my pediatrician said that was quote normal, which is a lie. It's you should be going every day. And by the way, you want to increase resilience in your family. Here's another, we're all adults here. Make sure you're pooping every day. Make sure everyone in your family is pooping every day. And I can prove it without being gratuitous. Ready? Every parent on the planet, without exception, doesn't matter where in what culture, what time period, what geography, irrelevant. If your toddler, your infant is feeling irritable or cranky, what is the first question? The first question every parent that has ever existed throughout all time asked, have you pooped? Did the child poop today? Yet somehow, magically, when we hit like 4, we stop asking the question. Certainly when we're adults, because that'd be weird if we asked oh, you're upset? Have you pooped today? If you poop, everyone feels better. The question does not, the relevance of that question at 1 year old does not stop when you're 50.
Can
So
I jump in really quick too? I'm sorry to interrupt, but you said also something that's profound that I just want to address with those on the call too is that doctor said that that was normal. And I hear from so many parents about such misinformation that's provided. If
totally.
you as a parent trust your gut, I've heard from dyslexic, parents that, they've been told your child will catch up. This is a normal process, or some of those things, and you're like, no, there's something going on. I just want to say trust your gut because that's profound. Because as you know, Dr. Sam, and be an investigator. Don't just trust if somebody says that this is okay, this will happen, they'll catch up. seek other guidance. And again, that's what I'm trying to build with Guiding Bright Minds is
Totally.
just to support you in that lens. So I just wanted to, you said that key word, and it's just not true, we got to question our professionals too.
Totally. And that's why I ended up where I am. Being because I was gaslit from one practitioner to the next, and I finally realized I had to take charge myself. And now I'm here trying to help others so they don't have to go through that giant arduous journey, and then scale this out and supporting families. Um, the third pillar is physical body. That's old injuries, poor posture. Genetics is in this as well. So I put genetics in the physical body because twins have the same body, literally, because they have the same genetics. And genetics analysis for health and resilience is a whole new field of genetics, which is just absolutely astounding. It's not genetics for what percentage Irish you are. It's looking at what is your genes for regulating inflammation? What is your actual optimal diet? You can now genetically determine, are you keto, paleo, Mediterranean, or high carb? There's the genetics for trigger foods. There's the genetics for eating behaviors. Like, are you oversensitive to bitter foods? Are you genetically going to overconsume sugar? Do you have a genetic issue around you don't feel full when you should? Are you genetically vulnerable to caffeine? Where if you have caffeine, you'll get caffeine-induced anxiety and depression. I have this. So there's so much in genetics that's available. Four is burst. I mean, all these begin with a B, but burst was the only B word for exercise I could think of, like burst training. So this is movement. So how well do people move? Do they get enough variety? Do they have enough intensity? Do they have enough recovery? Biotoxins, biotoxins are self-explanatory. What is your toxic exposure, whether it's in the air, the food, the water, clothing, off-gassing, stuff like, are you in a toxic environment that you're aware of or not aware of? Bionutrients have to do with all the things, it's the opposite of toxins, things you metabolize like nutrients, but also oxygen and sunlight, because you metabolize those as part of your physiology. Breakfast and routines is the seventh pillar. Now, the sickest group of people I've ever worked with have by far been night shift nurses, by far, because their routines are so messed up from the human Tetris the schedulers play with them and all these weird night shifts and all the rest of it. So getting on consistent routines is incredibly important to balance the cortisol rhythm, the circadian rhythm. 8 is bothers and stressors and traumas. And so this is looking at what is actually creating a lot of internal unresolved stress in your own life and mind. And there's many resources available for that, from EMDR to the work of Byron Katie to professionals and all sorts of stuff. Bugs as hidden infections, gut infections, and mold. Now, many people are aware that molds can exacerbate all sorts of issues, physical and psychiatric, and molds can lower your resilience faster than anything. But not everyone is genetically vulnerable to mold. Some people really, really are. But to those that are, it's really awful. So infections are kind of lumped into its own separate pillar. And then the 10th pillar is bedtime or sleep, quality, duration, depth, and consistency of sleep. So this is the 10 pillar method. It's what I use to identify what happened, why it happened, and then what to do in what order of priority and how to do it. So this way, that it may seem like it's a lot, but really this is a prioritization system. And pillar 10 may be pillar 10 sleep for teaching purposes, but it may be priority 1, 2, or 3 for someone based on their personal situation. So that's answering the 10 pillars. Going to other questions of how do you have ideas of helping siblings gain these skills and resilience? Okay, so the number one way to help children and siblings is to model. That's the number one thing, and that was the thing that my mom didn't do, is that she would tell me to do things but not do it herself. And me being Asperger's, I'm like looking for what is the truth here. Like, why are you holding yourself to a different standard than you're holding me to? And that led to a really big disconnect and a lack of trust, because it just seemed dictatorial and hypocritical. And modeling is the number one way to help children and siblings adapt these habits. Other questions that I'm seeing are okay. I can chat interact. Where can you find financial support for late diagnosed adult ASD? That I'm going to lead to Tiffany. Tiffany has way more resources for that than I do. I'm going to leave it to her network and her resources and websites to support you. I simply don't know. Then the question on, you have one neurodiverse kiddo, mild autism, ADHD, and two neurotypical kids. One of the neurotypical kids gets frustrated about the extra energy and exception he feels are made for his brother. Okay, so I had a sibling that was not very kind to me at all. And I believe, and I have other family members corroborate, is that she was upset by all the attention I got as the youngest. And so the sibling resentments, I mean, look, there's entire theologies based off of sibling resentments. I mean, you've got all of Rome based on Romulus and Remus. I mean, Cain and Abel, all the rest of it. So you're not alone in this at all. Um, and the uh, though I can't speak to your specific situation, what I can say is that does the neurotypical sibling fully understand the challenges his other sibling has? Is there an education gap? Number two, does that child does he need to learn how to have empathy? Number three, and I'm going to say something that may be really challenging to hear, and this is not directed at your kid individually, but it's something I need to acknowledge, is that 1 in 30 to 1 in 20 males are psychopathic or sociopathic or narcissistic. It's about 3 to 5%. And the reason I bring this up is because I was horribly bullied in school, violently bullied. And every parent was like, not my little Billy, he's an angel. No, your Billy's a sociopath who's violent behind your back. And so my sibling was really treated me very poorly behind my mom's back, very poorly. And to the point where my mom was willfully blind to it and claimed she didn't see it, even though I have the emotional scars to prove it. And so there has to be 1 in 30 to 1 in 20 kids, particularly males, are on this aversive personality spectrum. It's another spectrum. And I'm not qualified to say what to do about that, but I am qualified to say it exists, and I've been on the receiving end of it. And that my desire for parents is to take into account all possible spectrums, and that's not just autism spectrum, but there can be narcissistic spectrums and sociopathic spectrums, which there are. And then there are other support groups for that. And there are ways to channel that child's particular brain makeup in a way that can be productive, but it can be very touch and go and very difficult. And I'm just throwing it out there because the willful blindness and the denial of parents growing up was just absolutely horrible. And it's just a reality that we have to face. And again, I'm not saying that's your kid, but I'm saying that, we've got, we had at one point over 30 people here. One of your kids guaranteed is on that spectrum. So it's just something we just have to acknowledge and look at. And I think, yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that. The communication tips, there's another question on communication tips to best get through to my neurodivergent kiddo. Okay, it depends on what you're trying to get through. It depends on how far on the spectrum they're in. Now, I recommend my comedy show. It depends on how old the kid is. Now, my comedy show is really designed for 13 and above. Not because it's got PG-13 in terms of salacious materials. It's kind of heady. It's heady based humor. And is there an understanding of what like how my parents could have better communicated to me was to be very transparent in language and not assume that I understand metaphors and 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 implying things as opposed to saying things explicitly. There may be some just genuine technical wires that are crossing because the communication may not be explicit enough and when you may be using implicit language. And also, I know I don't know if you've ever people here recommend reading the book if you have someone who got Asperger's, The Complete Guide to Asperger's by Dr. Tony Attwood. You know, having finding the shared interest is of real value. That sometimes communication happens around the shared interest, and through the shared interest, whether it's like they're interested in dinosaurs or whatever, that's the vehicle of connection to then create connection on all things. Other questions? You'd rather be isolated, be able to communicate with my son. I have his trust to let me help him, also be his mom to have fun with him. As a neurodivergent kid, he'd rather be isolated because we don't understand him. Okay, so, and then looking for ideas. All right. So the way that I could have, the way that my mom could have helped me with trust with me, because I certainly didn't trust her growing up, was that she was not modeling behavior. She was telling me to do things, but she was doing the opposite. And it could, in any little thing, because we're good at recognizing patterns. And if there's a break in the pattern, then that fractures our trust with the whole thing. So, and in terms of, and wanting to have fun with him and having his trust, you know, there may have to be some real dialogue around is what has been done to break the trust. And I don't know if that explicit conversation has been had. Is there something that you said you did, but then you did the opposite, or he interpreted it as it may not be true that you didn't do anything that wasn't out of integrity, but he may have saw it and interpreted it incorrectly. I don't know. And then if he rather be isolated, I mean, that's really dangerous about wanting to be isolated. I drowned myself in video games. That was my escape. I was a video game addict, and that's how I escaped, and television addict. And I had to learn about humanity through watching sitcoms, which is not the best idea if you're watching Married with Children or The Simpsons. And I'd say it's not healthy for him to be isolated. I'd say go through what is the unique interest, the special interest, and find other people, if it's other neurodivergent kids, that share that special interest.
So really quick, I just want to jump in because I know we're at the top of the hour. I did put my email address, my direct email address. One of the things to share, my services are free for parents. My whole focus is connecting you with vetted and qualified providers that are here to service you and your family. And so my direct email is in there. Please email me if you have any questions about the journey, what you're looking for, you know, the person who put in there about the financial aspect. There are a lot of resources, and you know, to Dr. Sam's point, there is a lot of communities, and that's one of the things I'm building is to have that collaboration, to find that support for kids and parents to get together to form those relationships, because that is so important, and more to come from that. Dr. Sam, this was amazing, and thank you for your lens and your perspective of guiding us as parents on how to shape. I mean, we're not going to be perfect. We got to give ourselves grace, but you know, you're here, and thank you all for those who joined today. You took the time. This is one step, and just trying to figure it out and trying to be the best that we can be in supporting our families. So I appreciate that. As mentioned, I'll be sending out the recording, the presentation, some other things. I'm looking to get that out by tomorrow for sure, but just know it's going to be on its way. So thank you so much for today.
Thank you, Tiffany. And I just, you know, so there's a couple people's questions I didn't get to, and like just in short, around behaviors in school and isolation and all this seems like a common theme. The one piece I forgot to mention was one of my biggest regrets growing up was not starting martial arts until I was 30. I wish that I was enrolled in martial arts starting at age 6. It's never too late. I started martial arts when I was 30, and my life changed way for the better because of it. And I think that one of the things that can help, especially jujitsu, because Brazilian jiu-jitsu is I think it teaches you how to be proximate to people, how to learn their bodies, understand how to interact with people, and like there is, assuming you go to a good school, that the black belts above who are teaching, they're watching for any negative behavior that is being targeted towards a smaller, weaker white belt or whatever. And I would say that for the other questions in general, whether it's behavioral problems or feeling isolated, martial arts is kind of a general catch-all suggestion to help so many things for helping your kid with with integrating with their bodies, with their communication, and with other people at large. And again, and then coming back to what you said, Tiffany, thank you again, Tiffany, for doing this. I'm trying to not get emotional about this, but I wish there was someone like you when I was growing up doing this for other parents. I wish there was someone like you that was so dedicated and so kind and so resourceful to gather and create communities like this and opportunities for parents to come together and listen to other people who want to help parents and kids on the spectrum. We did not have this growing up, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and I look forward to collaborating in the future and supporting parents and kids on the spectrum more and more, because this is, I could not think of a more meaningful thing for me to contribute and participate with. So thank you, Tiffany, truly.
Thank you. Don't make me cry either. I'm always so easily emotional about this, so I appreciate it. And thank you all again for joining us. We'll send this out, and I hope everyone has an amazing rest of your day. Thank you all.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Thanks.